This episode of D1011, I'm joined with Damien Newton, former Tri-State Campaign New Jersey coordinator, the founder of LA Streetsblog, and now the executive director of California Streets Initiative. We talk about New Jersey, transportation, journalism, and why journalists aren't neutral observers. They're stakeholders. Hello, everyone. This is D1011. I'm here with Damien. He knows me from, I don't know, like 20 years ago, actually. 20 years ago.
2007 was when we first met. So yeah, pushing it.
Yeah, yeah. Like, but it's weird because we both met when we were five. So I I don't know. We've done a lot. But I decided to talk to Damien because Damien is actually from New Jersey, right?
I'm from Pennsylvania, but I lived in New Jersey when I became when I got a job there, and that's where my fiance then wife, now wife, that's where she lived. So I moved in with her when I was in my 20s. So I was there for, I don't know, about a decade.
Yes, and you are the founder of Streetsblog.
Streetsblog LA. Don't
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but
I
that's
was
that
the
to me that's the only Streetsblog that matters.
we were the second one. When I was moving, I worked for a group called the Tri-State Transportation Campaign, which is still active in New Jersey.
I know I have met them.
Yeah, I was their New Jersey person, and when I was moving to LA again for my wife's job, I approached them about doing something out here, and that's sort of how it all happened at first. So yeah, and now there's streets blogs like all over the place. But yeah, that was the LA one was, and different. The sites are very different based on who the editors are, and when editors change, they usually change too. Like a lot of times, it's a one person show, so they're very we practice solutions journalism, so there's always some of the editor's experiences and views in that in the writing. So they can vary wildly, all built around the idea, that we need to kick our car addiction.
That is right. That's right. And I have a show called Auto Asphyxiation, but that's not what we're actually we are kind of talking about that.
Kind of,
We
yeah.
are kind of talking about auto asphyxiation. And the reason I kind of brought Damien in is because those of us in the New York metro area, there's a thing called congestion pricing,
Hmm.
which actually I was for. I wrote an op-ed for it. I was like so into it. I was like, this is great. I said, if you drive into Manhattan, you deserve punishment. Okay. And I'm an Angelino, and I say that. I was like, I'll tell you something, Damien. I drove to Manhattan one time, and I was crying the entire way
It
there
was it
back.
was terrible, right?
And it was at night. I viewed myself as doing someone a favor, and they thought it was funny. I said, "Hey, well, I'll drive you home because, like, so we do in LA. I'm gonna drive you home." And she was like, "We don't need to do that." And I said, "No, no, no. It's like 10. I want to drive you home." And she just started laughing, and I said, "Okay." And it's like toll after toll, and then like no park. It was a nightmare. And then I was like, "Who's doing this every day, like on purpose?"
Yeah, I don't know. When I lived in Jersey, I commuted into New York, and my wife and I very specifically picked a place where we could walk to a train station that took us, took me. We had to reconnect in Secaucus Junction, but I would go into the city, into Midtown, and she would switch to the PATH train in Hoboken, and go to downtown, and that was a very intentional decision because I wasn't as like anti-car as I am now, but I don't like to sit in traffic.
No, I understand. Currently now I live by two trains. I can take the light rail and I can take the light rail to the path and I can take the heavy rail. And I don't drive so frequently. Like one, as you know, when I was in LA, I didn't drive at all
At all.
because I
Yeah.
was like into torturing myself. And so, but I did get a car, but I have driven the car so little that now my battery regularly dies.
Hmm.
So that is how infrequently I drive my car. But the reason why we are talking is because of congestion pricing. And essentially $100 million of funding for place-based mitigation is going to communities that are kind of set up right now to end up having a little bit more pollution because people are going to be driving to certain places and then parking their car and then taking public transit. And the places that was it hit in New Jersey is Newark, East Orange, and Orange, and also Fort Lee. Um, and I was kind of like surprised because a lot of people kind of did not know about this. East Orange is getting get point 0.9, like I guess point like a point, I guess 900,000. East Orange is going to get 1.8. So I guess Orange is going to get 900,000. East Orange is going to get 1.8, and Newark is going to get $5.7 million. And the thing is that, oh, how are we going to spend this money, right? Like, this is a question. Like, how are we going to spend this money? And it's supposed to have community, I don't know, discussions about this. So kind of why we're talking today is because I was trying to go to one of those stakeholder meetings, and they essentially said I couldn't go because I was media. And before I talked to you today, I thought, let me check and see if that actually happened. Because I was like, I kept thinking in my head, that's just wild to me. Like, that's just a wild thing. And they disinvited me. They sent me an email. You can't go.
I've never gotten an email that says I can't go because I'm media. Sometimes they'll, there will be ground rules like, this is we want people to be, speaking freely. So, identify yourself, give people the option to, speak anonymously. And it's up to the journalist whether or not they're going to agree to those rules or not go. But I've never heard of that. Oh, well, I guess I've heard of it. It's just never happened to me where I've been disinvited after the fact. In California, they don't always want me slash us at the things, but they usually do a pretty good job of begrudgingly accepting us, even if they don't. Especially because, I mean, if you're living in North Jersey, aren't you a stakeholder anyway? Like, I don't understand.
This is my whole understanding. Like, to me, in my mind, I am a stakeholder. I live here. I pay taxes here. I have a home here. But also, too, I think one of the things that was interesting, Damien, was they told me I couldn't come to the meeting, but then they have not called me back to actually have an interview. So I was given an email saying, contact the media department because you're media. This was on March 2nd. So I contacted them. I emailed them. I had 3 phone calls with them that I recorded. I will be
Good.
sharing. Yes, I recorded all of this information. And now 2 weeks later, no one has gotten back to me. They say when I called Metro, they said, we have no idea what you're talking about. Which is quite interesting because, the point is this, which I think is interesting. First off, I'm really glad New Jersey is getting a portion of the funding, and I'm glad that it's for environmental justice reasons. But I am very kind of confused about this procedural pantomime in regards to not being able to know how the money is going to be used. I mean, I think one of the things they said was they were going to install air infiltration in schools near the highways, and that said is still status and location to be determined. Then they also said they were going to have vegetation on the roadsides. They said again, to be identified and determined, and renovate park and green space. Again, the status was saying they haven't yet decided where it was going to be. So at this point, I'm thinking, wow, they do need to have stakeholder meetings because they haven't done this. Because this is what I thought too. Maybe I missed it because they were talking about in 2024. Maybe it's already happened, which I know wasn't a thing, but I thought, well, maybe somebody wrote about it. I looked, it was nothing. So like, don't you think the public should decide like what should be going? I mean, shouldn't there be some if there's a stakeholder meeting, shouldn't people know about it?
Well, I think a quick question for you is who's holding the stakeholder meeting? Is it the cities or is it the Port Authority? Like,
MTA headquarters.
oh, MTA's holding
Yeah,
it. Okay.
MTA
Wait,
headquarters. The thing is that I had heard about it
wait,
through,
MTA in New York is holding community meetings in Jersey?
yes. Oh, I'll put it this
That
way.
that's
Zoom
weird too.
meetings. Zoom.
Oh, Zoom
They're not
meeting.
doing
Okay.
commute there. No, they would
I
never
was tr
come.
I was trying to picture that. I was like, I don't even know if they could find some of the places in New Jersey if they're the people that are still there 18 years, 20 years later, but they're probably not the same people. They're probably new people. But no, I mean, this sort of thing, there should definitely be a lot of community input, and the community should have a chance to have a say. The identifying, it's always, I think, surprising to people that work in government how they'll miss things that happen in the local neighborhoods where they're trying to do stuff because there's just a breadth of local knowledge that's not always there. A lot of times on streets blogs when we're talking about bicycle pedestrian projects or that sort of thing, there's sort of always the concern when you get to the local level for those meetings that, 20 people show up that don't want the bike lane because they want parking and they just dominate and take over the meeting. And while 95% of the time it's usually like eye rolling and frustrating, there are times where those people just know stuff that the planners don't know about the neighborhood. So it's always good to have an opportunity to do that. Said I'm definitely confused as to why they don't. I not maybe not why they don't want, but why they won't allow someone there on behalf of journalism, on behalf of helping to get the news about what the meeting is about there, about covering the meeting. Again, it might be that they're concerned about your recording it or something like that, but that's usually something that's worked out with, ahead of time, sort of ground rules, especially in the age of Zoom meetings with the ability to record just being, clicking two buttons on the computer. But absolutely. The cities that are identified make sense to me. Not knowing the total numbers for the program, the basic numbers make sense to me. But yeah, how you're going to identify those things needs to be clear to the neighborhood, and maybe it's clear to the local government, and they're counting on the City Council of East Orange to get that information out, and they're bumbling it. That stuff I don't know, but yeah. Also, it might be interesting. One of the things that you and I collaborated on out here was trying to get information from the government about a big project, that football stadium in Inglewood. And this is like a massive, giant project that we couldn't get information about. I wanted to write about, how people were going to get to the stadium. You wanted to write about the impact it was going to have on Inglewood and the community broadly, and we couldn't get them to hand us the information, which was just it's still staggering to me. They're like they put their finding out there and we never got it. So this is a discussion you and I have been having for what 15, 17, 18 years. Like, why can't we get this information that should be public?
No, and it's amazing. It's like we can't get this information that should be public. It is Sophie Stadium still pisses me off. I can't even discuss it. When people are like, "Oh, Sophie Stadium," I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. Yes. So I mean, I want to know like a lot of people probably don't might not know who you are well, you know what? People do know who you are, but they might not really understand that you are a news interest, public interest, transportation, blog, media, actually news outlet. And I don't think people quite understand like what we do. I think they think that we're advocacy, and we're not advocacy. We are well, I mean, you might be advocacy, but I'm about public interest, and about sharing that information. And I feel like the public needs to know what is going on. And I don't understand what this weird theater is in regards to this.
No, and I would argue that public interest is advocacy also. Like no one's getting into journalism to get rich. They're doing it because they want, in some way, shape, or form, they want to make the world a better place by exposing lies, by um, whatever. So it's not. I would argue that almost every journalist is an advocate in some way, shape, or form. Some are just some pretend they're not. Some uh, really just try to stick so hard to the facts that maybe they won't see themselves that way, and then there's some that are just more honest about it. But yeah, no, getting information out. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars here, and maybe in Newark a couple $1 million can sort of just fold into the cracks into some fun program that's gonna or some important environmental program. But in some of the smaller cities, it's going to be very visible and very noticeable to people, what's going on there. So yeah, no, absolutely. The
Yeah,
more information that
and,
be out there,
and
the
also,
better.
and also too, I think it's like this whole idea that the only media that could be there can be consultants, like pub PR, like that is like, well, they want to be able to control the media that goes out. And I'm like, that's called an ad. That's not the same thing as what we are doing. And I'm not quite sure what the problem is.
Yeah, again, I not knowing the people involved, I can't give you this is what the problem is. But no, the more information, the better. And media should be allowed to go to if it's a public meeting, it's a public meeting. The word public's in it. Um, I don't have a lot more to add than that. Generally I'm very supportive of congestion pricing, and the program seems to be doing some great stuff, but that doesn't mean that everything's perfect.
No,
Uh,
I'm saying that the
but
program is
yeah,
doing great stuff. I think the thing is interesting is that in the New Jersey area, they are not essentially letting people know what's going on, having stakeholders meeting. And also, too, when I've asked people around town, do you know that New Jersey is getting a portion of this money? No one knows this. This is not information that is widely known. And the people who do have the information seem very much like they don't want to share it with other people because they want it all for themselves. And I think that's really strange.
And I think actually the opposite is probably true. People probably just assume that New Jersey is not getting any money because it's a New York City program. The Port Authority's joint powers, and New Jersey has some say in all of that. But, a program that's run by New York City MTA, people would assume there's no trade-off for. So it is good that the program exists. But, again, we're talking millions of dollars. The more people that know about it, the better.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the thing is that this is in a way like a kind of we can look at the First Amendment and we can look at just, how public agencies treat communications. How are we, I mean, I think in a way journalism is slowly kind of disappearing, and not that solution journalism is important. Journalism that's working with different government agencies is important, but also kind of watchdog journalism is also important, especially, we have situations like this congestion pricing where there's some people who are kind of like, especially in New Jersey, who aren't for it. Now,
No, I can't imagine it's that popular in New Jersey.
but it would be more popular because especially in Newark and East Orange, people in those areas don't have cars. I mean, so it's not like, oh, these people are driving. Even when you go to Newark, most of the people who are driving into Newark are from the cultural suburbs. So this isn't like people who are, oh, so this is actually be benefiting the lives of people in Newark, benefiting the lives of people in East Orange. So why would you not want them to know this information? And I think in a way it almost feels like there's competition between, is it competition between Orange and East Orange and Newark? And they kind of like, well, we want all the money for us. We don't want people to know this is happening. I mean, I don't even know what is going on. And I feel like if you say you were the head of the MTA, or, this program, what would you do in regards to New Jersey and like informing people?
I'm not 100% familiar with the landscape there anymore, but New Jersey was somewhat unique in that it had a lot of larger mid-sized cities that had their own dailies. The Asbury Park Press was like a very important newspaper, believe it or not, because they had a good transportation writer, who I think works for the Star Ledger now. But they had a great transportation writer, and they were actually read up and down the Jersey Shore by a million people. And so, like, if you wanted a story that really resonate in New Jersey, especially if it involved Congress, because that's where the Republican Congress members were from, you went to the Asbury Park Press, not the Star Ledger or the Bergen Record or papers that people might have heard of. So you have this very interesting media ecosystem with lots of dailies. My guess is, not having followed it closely, is that they're probably all shrinking. And it used to be when I was at Tri-State in 2006, and when MTA was there, you could just get all the word out by going to the Bergen Record or going to their transportation writer, letting them know what's going on. And that's all you had to do. And nowadays, that's probably not the case, because my guess is if they even have a full-time transportation writer, that he's got like 6 other different beats, and he can't just put out a story about an MTA $5 million grant like he would have been able to 20 years ago. So there could be an issue of not knowing how to work with independent media, or not recognizing that you have to work with independent media to get your stories out and to get your stories told. Um, because MTA is not dealing with New Jersey on a day-to-day basis anymore. Um, or not anymore, because they're not, that their playbook's tired. So that's sort of the benefit of the doubt. Because I can't figure out why you wouldn't want people to know it, unless the grant program, they already sort of know what the money's gonna go to, but they have to do a public process, so they're just checking a box. That would be the more sinister. So are they out of touch with the media market, and how to do things, or is it something where they already know what they want to do, and so they're just going through the motions on public process, or something in between? It could be any of them. But, one of the reasons I'll never be the head of a government agency is I'm a big believer in media and independent media. So I would have made time about this program to just talk to people. If it's not the highest project for the bosses, I understand that. Again, they're a New York-based agency doing outreach in New Jersey. So you do an event, maybe 2 events. They could be online. They could be a 1 hour event where you just explain the program, talk about the program, answer questions. It's not rocket science. Or they could have returned your calls.
Exactly. Thank you so much for talking with me, Damien. I appreciate you and I appreciate this conversation. And we'll see if I get, if I get any luck in talking to the MTA. In Orange, East Orange, and Newark, generations of redlining and disinvestment became a system of racialized dispossession. And now the displacement threat hovers again. When hegemony skips real engagement, it manufactures silence. And it is manufactured. It weaves the lie that people don't care. People stop believing their voice, their presence, their ideas count. Because the hegemony, they don't. And this is a crash, not an accident, a crash of people's spirits and further dehumanization. Congestion pricing, which is good and I support, is administered through MTA's Tri-Borough Bridge and Tunnel Authority, TBTA, and it reshapes a shared region. New Jersey lives this policy, yet too often hears about it last, if at all. This money is not supposed to be for your friends in New Jersey who are doing the bidding for Manhattan's financial district. It's supposed to be for Essex and Hudson's working class. If TBTA is steering a metro-wide change, our communities, all of our communities, must be at the table from day one. Start with dignity, design for inclusion, and audit for harm. This is Sontag with D1011.